Hello! Today we're going to be painting a Cymbidium Orchid. There are so many beautiful varieties and colors of these flowers, and they're just so elegant and sculptural. I'm going to be painting a pink one in this video, a pink and white primarily. And so I decided to tone my paper a darker blue so it would really pop out and look beautiful up against that. So I did an acrylic wash on my page and let it dry. And then I'm starting out with titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, magenta. I got out quite a bit of magenta because this is a pink flower, so we're going to be using lots of pink. Cadmium red, phthalo green, and yellow ochre. And I think just the green and the ochre will mostly be for just sort of color mixing with these warmer colors. I don't know if I'm going to incorporate leaves. I think we'll kind of wait till the end and see what the composition needs. But also because orchids are so detailed, they have lots of parts and patterns to the blooms. I'm actually going to paint them pretty large. I think I'm going to do a composition of 3 and maybe one fully painted and then the other one sort of partial, because I really want to be able to focus on all of the beautiful parts and not make them too small and then feel like I need to like cram all this little detail in minutia into like a bunch of blooms. We're just going to kind of blow them up and really make them fill the page. And because they're so gorgeous and sculptural, I think that'll be really fun. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of paint the largest petals. So each of the Cymbidiums have let's see, they've got 5. They've got 5 petals. And I have a couple photos up on my desktop that I'm using as references for color, for kind of bloom, what would you call it, like positioning and stuff. I'm creating my own composition, but I have several that I've just sourced off of the internet. So if you do a image search for Cymbidium orchids, you'll be able to find lots of interesting reference photos. And I would recommend having some of those up as you paint too, even while you watch this video, just so you can understand how I'm interpreting what, you know, the reality of these flowers is. I think I'm going to go for kind of a medium pink. And because these are pretty large flowers, I'm realizing I need to make more already. I can tell I need to make more if we're going to be getting 3 large flowers painted. I need more. Okay. So they've got their 5 petals, and that's kind of the base shape of the flower. And then they have this interesting smaller shape in the middle that has, I looked up the names because I was like, what is the name of all these parts of orchids? So actually there's petals and sepals, which are the biggest petals. I'll just call them petals. And then they have a lip, which is like the down hanging part of the center portion. And then there's a column, which is the upper portion of the center part. So I just thought that was interesting to get a couple names, this a little bit more correct names. Okay, so now that I've gotten my pink, I think I'm going to have the biggest focal point bloom here. So I'm kind of looking to see how I'm going to position this, because the petals are kind of going in an X, and then there's like a 5th one up in the center here. So I want to make sure I'm leaving enough room from where I originated to, you know, not run off the edge of the page. So I think I'm going to start it here, or maybe even a little bit further over, just a slightly off center, because I want the weight of this first bloom to kind of be using up this like corner. And there's a bunch of different petal types. I'm doing a little bit of the shorter, more squat, I guess, or wide type of petal, but I love they have a little bit of a ruffle to the edge, so I'm going to try to incorporate that by just sort of wiggling my brush as I drag it along, and then I'm just going to fill in. And you can't really see where these connect in because they're covered up by the center part. So I'm not really worrying as much about this part right here because it'll just get all painted over. Okay, so it goes down. Okay, I'm gonna just bring it a little further down. Whoop. You know what? I feel like this is just going to take up this whole thing. I made it larger than I was anticipating already, so which is fine. We're going to go with it. And then this part, this other petal kind of goes off here. We're just going to embrace how large this is because I'm having so much fun already. I think this is going to be really awesome having so much space to get all the beautiful details in here. And because the background is so dark, I'm painting a little bit thickly. I'm trying not to drag my brush so much and thin the paint out a ton because I know that the blue is going to start showing through. And then the petal in the center here is actually behind. I'm just looking at my images again to kind of remind myself how this is all positioned. So this one is behind, and so it is gonna be tucked in behind these two, and it's okay when I paint it. If they overlap, I'll just repaint the front edge so that it's clear that these are in front. You can kind of see the brush stroke there, and that'll help our eyes know. And then we'll add obviously more detailing. I think I'll bring the pink down. I think we can see it at least that far down. Okay, and then let's see how this works. So actually, now that I'm looking a little bit more carefully, I think these I'm going to bring a little further down because you can see them kind of connect down into the flower. And then from right about here, the two bottom petals come out. I'm just going to do one right here. I'm going to have it be, they come out from behind the top set. So I'm just going to have it kind of underlap, if that's an actual word. Did I just make that up? And then this one, I'm going to try to, I'm trying to make it asymmetrical so it really feels more organic. I'm not trying to match this side to this side perfectly. All right, this is so fun painting these large flowy shapes. I feel like I got a little fleck of dried paint from something in there. There we go. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. I think I got it out. I'm using up an older set of paints right now that I've had stored in my studio, and I think it has little like speckles of dried paint in it, which is a little weird. Okay, so you know what, because this one's a little longer, I think I'm gonna make that one slightly longer so it kind of matches how elegant and long all of these are. There we go. Okay, so I kind of like how it's turned a little bit. I think that's really beautiful. So then the center portion is going to kind of take up this space right here. It's going to overlap over all of those petals. So I think we have enough pink. I'm going to do another one, and it's going to go behind this one. And then we might even hint at a few other petals kind of tucked around, because these flowers grow very densely on, you know, a center stem, and they're all just sort of clumped along it. And so when you look at photographs, the flowers are always very, very close to each other. They don't grow spaced out. So I think for this next one, I'm looking at positions that would be fun to try. Trying to decide if I want two forward-facing ones. You know what? To keep it simple, I think I will do just forward-facing flowers versus getting really fancy, because these are, especially because this is a tutorial video and I want to keep it a little simpler for you. Let's just do another one, and its petals are going to, don't want to completely mirror what's going on there. So let me think for a second. Okay, I think I'm going to move it over. And we'll just kind of differentiate. We'll try to help them look a little separate and different with some of our other shapes. There we go. So since this is a beginning video, I don't want to introduce something that's a little bit, you know, too hard, and rotating a shape like this and getting the perspective to make sense is much more challenging because it is all, I don't know, you have so many moving parts with this flower. It's a lot easier to rotate and paint something so that it makes sense that is, you know, a more round, easy flower like a rose or a peony or something like that. So I think we're going to keep these ones mostly facing forward. And some of my reference photos have them grouped like that, so that's totally normal for them to be like that too, to like more than one just all kind of facing the same direction. Okay, so I need some more pink. And I like how this is turning out. This one will be kind of set behind, and then we might even have room to hint at like another one or two in the corners. Or we can just hint at green. I almost like that idea, having just some green leaves, some little strokes showing up. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to decide where I want to stick this other petal. I think I'm going to have it kind of go behind there. I'm going to leave a little space right there just because this is our first layer and I need to know where that edge is. But as we layer in our highlights and our shadows, we're going to get rid of that little blue edge there, probably with the highlight color on the tip of that petal. All right, and then our bottom one. So I'm gonna, like I did before, I'm gonna extend these down a little bit. And then have these ones come out. And they're gonna go off the page. So I'm just going to leave the edges painted a little bit more rough like that. I like not having something quite so, you know, cut off on a perfect line. I think that looks, I don't know, it just doesn't have the organic look that I like. So I think I'm going to leave that a rougher edge. I think we'll wiggle the edge of that one to help it have a little bit of a wave, and then we'll bring that up and tuck it under. Okay. There we go. Okay, well, I think that's a great beginning. Now, I think for clarity's sake, I'm not going to do any other petals right now. We'll see at the end. I don't want to confuse our eyes and think into thinking like, oh, there's a, you know, a sixth petal coming off of this one or anything like that. If it looks like it might need it in the end instead of leaves or in addition to leaves, then maybe I'll mix another pink and that's maybe slightly darker or something like that, but we'll see. Okay, so now that we've got the basic outlines of these petals, I think we're going to detail the petals and then paint on top of them. I don't, well, okay, I say that and then I start questioning myself. You know what? I'm going to change my mind because of this. I don't want to add a ton of layers that we're going to have to paint on top of, because then that's just more wet paint that we're going to try to get more wet paint to sit on top of. These have already started to dry, and they're a thinner layer of paint. So we'll put in our center of the flower, and then we'll just detail these on the parts that are still showing. You can do it either way, but I think it's a little bit easier to paint on top of almost dry paint instead of more layers of the wet stuff. So you know what, for the basic shapes, I'm going to stick with the big brush, and then we're going to switch to the smaller round brush to do some of the patterning and striping and all of those beautiful details. So let's just do white right now, and I need more white because most of this has pink on it now. So I'm going to paint these shapes, the center petal shapes, in white. And then they're going to get other, you know, colors kind of layered on top, but they're basically like white with some pink spotting and some yellow detailed on top. And then there is a darker pink portion. The column is what they call it. So we'll do that in a dark pink color, but okay, here we go. So now, I think we'll paint what's called the lip next. So I'm looking to see how far it extends. It shouldn't go too far down, so I might a little mark right there to help my eye know where I'm going to aim for as I'm painting. So here we go. We're gonna kind of do a ruffle out and then just round it. And it's sort of just like a little wavy edge shape. So it doesn't have to be perfect, and it can it should dip at the bottom. It should be kind of dip low at that bottom point. There we go. Okay, and I'll just fill that in. And actually, I feel like I was thinking of switching to my small brush, but I think we can do the rest with the big here. Then there's just sort of like these two side portions that are here, and they're just sort of like little comma shapes. There and there. Okay, so let's do that on the lower one. I'll make a little mark again. Okay, and then we'll do our little sides. Okay, and these are all connected here. So I want to kind of make sure we have a smooth edge, because these are actually not two, these are actually one single part of a continuous part of the flower. There we go. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of the pink mixing, but not too bad, which is good. Okay, so now I think we'll make a darker pink for the sort of hood part. It's the column. Gonna get my smaller brush now, I think. Okay, so we'll use Magenta. Actually, we could probably just mix it right here, because I need a little bit of white, but not as, you know, I don't want something as light as the petal color. So this is pretty good. Maybe just a little bit more of the light. Here. Okay, so then this I think I'm just going to paint as like a little scooped. I'm trying to think of how we're sort of, you know, gonna interpret these shapes. So this, I think we're just gonna paint as like a little comma shape. And it's just a little bit lower than the top of these white parts here. I'll paint my little hood. Whoops, I'm dragging the white into it. So let's come back and try to cover it up with some wet paint. And for things that I want to kind of pop and have dimension, I try to paint a little thicker to see how I have a good amount of paint on the canvas. Hopefully some of that thickness will stay even as it dries. I might even put a little bit more on this one because I like that. So because it kind of pops out in real life, I kind of like to have it pop out in the painting sometimes. There we go. Okay. We have our basic shape. So I think I'm going to make this a slightly darker red color, and this is in the center, and kind of fill in and shadow that center part, and then we'll let that dry while we do more detailing to the petals, and then we'll come in and add more details in the center. So I'm going to add just some of my red to that darker magenta pink, and there is a red portion on the inside edge of each of these white shapes here. So kind of the inner edge of it, we're going to do a stripe of this red. And then I'm just going to fill in kind of just as a background, fill in solid color to kind of paint everything on top of. I'm going to just use this and go down a little bit. I don't want it to go too far. I think I'm going to paint it to about there. And then we're going to do the same thing here with a little stripe on the inside. Oops, and that one got kind of mixed with the white again, so let's do it one more time with a bit more paint. There we go. Okay, now I kind of want to clean up the edges of the magenta kind of hood part, because this really is there. I'm just going to kind of round out the edge a bit more. This is supposed to be sitting, you know, in the foreground in front of that. So its edges kind of got cut off a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to leave that be and let it dry a little bit. And then we're going to go back to the petals. So they've got dark. I want to emphasize some dark and some light. So let's see. You know what, let's do some dark first. I really love this reddish kind of a color, and we're gonna make the red magenta again, and then add some white. We'll use the pinkish white. Whoops, that might be a little too much, let's see. And I think that went a little too red, so we'll come back with some more magenta. I want something darker than the petal color, but not quite as dark as that shadow. So we're going to try to finesse that a little bit. There we go. I think that's a good start. So the base of the petals are kind of darker, and then it fades to a lighter color. So I'm just going to kind of streak it out because they have this lined quality. So I'm going to start with the petal in the back. I'm going to also add a bit of water. Usually when I do kind of lines or things that need a little bit more precision, when I'm on paper, I need to add some water to help it flow off my brush a little better. So I'm going to use this color and kind of make it kind of solid at the base, and then go up into some striping up the center. There we go. And then I want the edges of these petals to stand out, so I'm not going to start right at the edge of these. I'm going to start just a little bit away from it. There we go. I'll just kind of pull these lines out. Oops, I caught some of my white, but that's okay. I'll just go over it a little bit. There we go. And you want to start, when you're doing lines like this, you want to start your stroke. Well, I guess I'll say you want to end your stroke on the end that you want your line to be the pointiest. And so, because see how that's a pointier end and that's the more blunt sort of end. So start where you want it a little bit more rounded, and then end where you want it a little bit pointier, because just naturally as you let up the stroke, it gets thinner. And as I'm seeing, there is a center line that just continues all the way to the tip. So I'm going to emphasize that in each of these. I almost had it in some of them already. Just sort of like a little thin line that makes it all the way there. Okay, I really love how that's looking. So we're going to just repeat over here. Oops, I'm going to start with this background one first. And see, there's so many parts to these beautiful flowers. So I think painting 2 is just perfect. Doing doing like 3 or 4 or 5 would make for a very long video. So I'm glad that we just picked 2, and then we can really just enjoy all of their beautiful details and take our time. There we go. And when you're doing these lines, you want to kind of follow the waviness of the petal that the outside of the petal that you established. So they don't all have to be completely straight. They can definitely, wiggle along with that, as the shape of the petal goes. Here we go. Then I'll just make sure these kind of reach the very tip. Those kind of go off the edge anyway. Good, okay. And since this one is underneath, I'm gonna bring the dark actually up a little bit more, and because this is just gonna be falling into shadow anyway, just naturally to help separate those 2 petals a little bit more and to emphasize the one that's on top. We'll just kind of fill that in. There. Okay. Just thinking if we need this anywhere else right now. You know what? This might be I'm going to use this color to just soften, I think, the ends of these right here. And I know there isn't a huge difference, so let's add a bit of white, because I don't want these to end quite so harshly like that dark color. They kind of fade a little bit in real life, so we're just gonna, since we've got it, we're just gonna kind of soften that. There, I like that. That already looks better. Okay, so now we're gonna make a light pink, and ooh, it's gonna look so cool. I love highlights. I think adding the lightest lights is the most exciting part for me because it just really makes everything pop so much and brings so much life to the painting. So I'm going to go for plain magenta and white because that makes a really nice, cool pink, and I think it'll be a beautiful contrast to the really warm shadows that we've got going on. So I'm going to start out really light. This, I think, is, yeah, too light. And again, I'm going to add some white to it as well. Evaluating, I think I need it to be just a little darker. There, I think that's perfect. So now we've got it watered down a little bit, and I'm gonna start at the tips because I want the light to come from the tip and then down a little bit. And we're just going to bring it along the outer edges and streak a little bit. So you can follow along, and here we go. So first I'm going to go down the edge because the variety I'm looking at has a really thin, light edge all the way down. Okay, so now we're going to just streak, streak, streak. Oops, I gotta make sure I'm not gonna lay my hand. So I like to kind of balance my hand on my pinky. It's sort of like, it takes up way less space than the whole side of your hand, and it's just sort of like an anchor where I feel like I have stability to my hand, but I'm not really laying it on, all of that wet stuff that's down there. Okay, so we're just gonna keep streaking, streaking. I can even kind of come from the other direction a little bit. I think I'm gonna, make that one a little bit bolder. And you can kind of emphasize like the wiggle of the edge of the petal, the wave, which is really lovely to kind of have that be a real clear thing that's going on. And this really helps separate the petals too. And it's interesting because it's like, it really actually is naturally outlined like that in this variety, at least, of the flower, which is funny. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and do these ones. So then the edge is coming out from behind and then going along. Okay, just got to remind myself by looking at my photos where I want this light to show up. some of these got a little bit rough up here, which I don't really enjoy the really dry, brushy sort of look as much in my work. So I might come back to kind of smooth things out with a little bit more of the medium pink. We'll have to see. Maybe once all the other details are in there, I won't care as much, because we tend to focus on, you know, what is the most immediate thing that's bothering us in our painting. But once we kind of move on and get more details in there, it might actually not be a big deal. So I'll just kind of wait and see if it still stands out to me. And I think maybe I want to change it still. Some of the petals, there is a lot of the lighter color. I think I'm going to bring just on a few the light up a little bit more. I think that's really pretty. There, yeah, I kind of like how that just adds a bit more variety to the look. All right, let's leave that one for now. I think that's pretty good. And now we'll go ahead and do this one. Whoops, this is actually starting to dry kind of thin, so I'm gonna just go over that edge a little bit more. I'm starting to see the blue really clearly through it. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and outline these guys. There we go. Okay, so then we'll go on, and I don't think I'll add nearly as much of this light pink, maybe just to this edge, because that petal is tucked under and I just want it to kind of come across as being a darker petal. Maybe just a touch or two right there. We might come back with the medium pink and actually do some striping and have the medium pink stand in for what the light pink would be doing. I think that might be nice. Okay, and we'll just add some of these. I like having some thicker strokes and some thinner ones. I'm always a fan of having a variety of stroke widths, because then it just gives your eye something more interesting to look at than, you know, the same thing over and over and over, the same width. And it gets a little bit, I don't know, I feel like it gets a little boring. So I like switching it up. Okay, and then we'll add our little light lines to this final one. And then we'll kind of evaluate and see what we need to do next. I have a feeling I'm going to want to add a slightly darker color of pink to our shadow areas to really show the deepest parts on these back petals. So I think this is perfect. I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to get magenta and just use plain old magenta. And where these petals go right behind, I think I want to just do a little stroke back here. Just sort of slightly shade it. That'll push it back more, and also bring more attention to this front portion there, because I felt like just something about that red pink was not getting dark enough. So I think that's perfect now. Okay, I think I'm really happy with what we've got. Actually, now that all the light pink is there, I'm really happy with it. I don't think I'm going to mess with it and add more of the medium pink. That's perfect. Except on this petal, I think let me see if I can pull a little bit of the medium pink back. There we go. That is all it needs. It just needed a little bit more texture and something not quite as bright. Okay. So now let me take a look at our photo references and just get a bearing for where we're at. I think now I'm going to add the yellow and the white in the center. So let's go ahead and do the white. So there is, actually, no. Because I think the white is better if done at the very end on top of everything. I think it is going to start mixing. So we're going to leave that off. There's white on top of the little hood shape. But we're going to do the yellow that's deep inside and kind of coming forward on the tongue, or the lip, I think is what it's called. Okay, so I'm going to make a kind of a golden, slightly more warm orangey version of my yellow, with a little bit of red, some yellow ochre. There we go. And I just realized the sun is getting super intense on my paper, so I'm going to pull the blinds down just a little bit. There we go. That's going to even out our light better. I was getting so absorbed in our painting, I wasn't even noticing. I have my desk right up against a window, which gets great light, but then later in the day, the sun just starts moving across it. Okay, so our center areas, a little bit of yellow. So there's kind of a little bit of a yellow U shape right here. So and with a little bit of dark in the middle of the U. So I'm going to just kind of paint two little strokes, and that is going to be the center part of our yellow. And I'll go ahead and I'll just do that same thing here. And then the yellow kind of just streaks forward and sort of fades out. So I think I'm going to add a little water so we can almost blend or stroke it forward a little bit more gently. And yeah, I'm a little like, I don't know why I'm nervous. I think because this is such a center focal point. There we go. And that's about it. So then we're going to do it on this one. It kind of comes down more in the middle. There, and it doesn't have to be a perfect shape. There we go. It kind of just blends down and fades out a little bit. Actually, I'm going to get, whoops, I got pink on that area of white. Where's my white? Here we go. I'm going to make a slightly lighter color just because it is such a focal point thing. I think I'm going to just soften this front edge with a little bit of white mixed with our yellow. There. I feel like that helps it not be quite so rough on that front edge. And then I'll get my yellow and kind of bring it down a little bit in the middle. There we go. I think I like that. Okay, cool. We're getting to the really exciting spots part. So these just on this front lip area and the white sides, there are these gorgeous spotted patterns, and they're this red, kind of a brownish red pink. So we're going to make that with our magenta, our red, and a teeny touch of green. The slightest bit, because green darkens and starts making red into brown. And so that is going to make a beautiful kind of maroon brown color here, which is the perfect color for our spots. Okay. So I'll kind of describe the way that it goes. It hugs the edge. The spotted areas are kind of even and solid along the outer edge, and then it like dots inwards. So that is how I'm going to paint it. I'm going to kind of paint a little edge all the way around our white, and I'm trying to just do it with a pretty light hand so that I'm not mixing the red with the white. And the red also dots on top of that yellow, so you don't have to worry about not touching the yellow. There we go. And we're not going to go up here yet. I'm going to go ahead and just do them both. I'm going to do each step kind of on the top one and then the bottom one so that we keep them developing together. I'll try to be gentle with that little guy. Okay, so now we're gonna go inwards and just sort of dot, and I want to break up this edge so that I'm not having any real straight clean edge on the inside. And this, I think, will be where a photo, your own photo reference, will be helpful for you. Just get any Cymbidium Orchid photo, and you know, they're all unique, they're all different, and just copy some of the spots that you can see on that photo, because I think that'll be helpful for you. You just kind of dot it inwards, and I think that's pretty much it for that one. It's really kind of just a small area, but it's so striking. I love it. So now we're going to go down to the bottom, and each one is a little different. Some of them have the pattern come in a little further. Other ones kind of stay out towards the edge. Some of them are a little bit more solid. Some are more dotted. So really, you don't have to make your two orchids match at all. They can have their own sort of personality going on. Okay. And then there's a couple little floating spots, kind of like right here and there, and they don't even match. So it's not necessarily symmetrical, like two on each side. The photo, one of the photos I'm looking at has 3 on one side and 1 on the other. So I'm just gonna kind of do a little something over here. There we go. Okay, so then the spots continue up the sides just a little bit, but they're not solid or anything. So I'm just going to kind of do that. I think that's perfect. And they're a little bit softer and smaller. paint on my brush. There we go. Awesome. I think that's perfect. Now I'm seeing in some photos, there's a few little stray ones that I like the looks of, like just tiny, teeny little guys. So I'm gonna get down with that amount of detail right now. I don't, since these are blown up, we can embrace, like just enlarged, we can just embrace all of the yummy, wonderful, tiny little details. Beautiful. Okay, so now that we've got our center pretty much done, I'm just gonna look and see if there's any last things. I think we're ready for the white. So there is just a little white comma. It's like a smaller, it's almost like bean-shaped version of this big pink shape right along its bottom edge. It's part of our hood part. And so viewed from the front, it just looks like a little white shape right there. We're gonna do the same thing here. Bloop. Just have a good little blob of white on your brush so that you can just do it once and done and not have to stroke and kind of mix with your pink. Okay, so now that we have all of our details, our darks, our lights, I am seeing that I want a slightly lighter pink on some areas of the petals because we have our beautiful bright white there, and it just makes me want to have something a little bit lighter on the petals to kind of match that. So I'm going to go back with some white into that light pink color and just add it to like an edge. It's going to be kind of sparing just here and there to just really push the values in these petals a little bit further. And that is like the color I want it to be. And I know it's going to dry a little darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more white. If you brush your paint on and you say, oh, that's perfect, it's going to dry darker. So try to adjust it so that you can get it really the color that you truly want. If you know. If not, just put it on and then see. There we go. See? I love that. It just really makes it pop just a little bit more. I'm just going to put it kind of in the middle of our lightest pink areas here and there. I can really make that front edge of this petal emphasize as it overlaps the one underneath. There we go. This makes me happy. Okay, so then we'll add a little bit on this lower flower. There we go. I put just a little bit more right there. There, that is awesome. I love that. Okay, So now I think our flowers are done. We're just gonna add some more leaves, or some leaves. We don't have any yet. So I'm gonna switch back to my big brush because I just want some kind of large, abstracted. I want them kind of in my mind to be sort of like an out of focus thing. We're really not gonna be staring at them a lot. They're just there to kind of fill the space, to accent. So let's do our green and then some yellow ochre. Let me think. I think we're gonna pull in just a tiny bit of red. I'll just add a little bit more earthiness to the green, and then I'll get a little bit of yellow. I'm just doing a whole cocktail. Let's see what this turns out to be. Ooh, okay, so it went a little, when you add white to this green, it goes sort of minty, which, let's see if I like that. I feel like for the warmth of this painting, I kind of want to add some more ochre. So I'm going to get out some more ochre on my palette because I know I'm going to want to have more of it later for the lighter tones in the leaves. So let's just add a nice big blob. Let's just do that. Let's go ahead and paint that. So for my photo references, it looks like Cymbidium have kind of long leaves that they can kind of just go any which way I want them to. Ah, and the sun is getting us again. There we go. Sorry about that. This video is like the sun is attacking my paper video. Okay, so I am going to just kind of just do some elegant long shapes. I'm going to add some water to my paint here. And just sort of do some flowing lines. And I'm not going to worry too much about, you know, what exactly they're doing, because I'm just going to have them kind of almost like radiate out and frame what we've got going on here. So maybe since those are going up, maybe we'll have a couple elegant ones coming down. And then let's have some kind of flowing this way. I don't think that needs it, and I kind of like that wash that's in the corners, that brushy look. Maybe just a few that are just like a little something there. Maybe a little larger there. I like that. And you know what? I don't think I want any there because I don't know if I want that perfect symmetry of having them like on either side of this front one. I like this sort of asymmetrical thing that we've got going. So let's just leave that, and then maybe one more there. And there. Okay, I think that's perfect. So I'm just going to take plain old ochre and kind of swirl it in my brush because I think it would be fun to pull that golden kind of vibe that's going on in the center of the flowers and just touch our leaves just a little bit. I don't think I want quite as much as came off on this one, so I'm going to come back with my darker green. There, soften a little bit. There. And I'm just adding, trying to get them to look balanced and interesting to me. So you just brush away until you're happy with your leaves. I think that's perfect. I think that has a nice a nice sort of framing feel, a nice balance between the light and the dark, but really we're just leaving them really minimal and letting the flowers be the gorgeous focal point. So I think we've got it. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate you putting up with the silly blinds and light, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you next time. Bye!